Welcome back to my series on Kerbal Space Program, getting to the and from the moon. My name is Kutani, and let's get started. In the last video, we got our ship into orbit, and that is where we are now. Jebediah seems quite pleased, and he is ready to go. So I'm just going to jump right in. We left the last video with 928 meters a second left in our stage here. This will be our trans-Munar injection stage, serving sort of double duty both as launch and as injection because we like efficiency. We've got a apoapse of 81 kilometers, periapse 73.6, and our target is Moon. We could actually probably get to Minmus without too much difficulty, and interestingly enough, even though Minmus is further out and requires a little bit more delta V to get to, because it is such low mass and requires such a small amount of delta V to land and escape from, it actually costs less aggregate delta V to get to it and back from it. But that's no fun. I want to do Moon because it's a greater challenge. So having clicked on Moon and selected it as target, we now are presented with 2 extra points on our orbit. These are the ascending and descending nodes. Because we launched and we weren't perfect on our ascent, our orbit inclination is slightly off from Moon's. So before we do anything, we're going to adjust that. We could adjust it on the move, but I'm going to do it here just for example's sake. To make this easy, I'm going to place my node on the ascending node, which is what we're approaching, and I'm going to adjust these vectors until we get ascending and descending of 0 degrees. The closer we get, the better. It may not seem like much when you're talking about 0.2 degrees of difference on your ascending or descending nodes, but if you're talking about interplanetary travel over large enough distances, those add up quickly. So it's going to be about a 28.1 meters per second of burn. We're going to move our prograde facing to that node. And you'll notice on my Navball, occasionally there's ghosting of where various nodes are located. This is the enhanced Navball plugin, and it just makes it easier to find the nodes on the Navball. Squad have said that a lot of the features that are in enhanced Navball are planned for Kerbal Space Program. They just haven't had time to implement them yet. They've been backburnered, so that'll be coming eventually. For now, it's nice that we can have it. It's going to be a very quick burn, only 1 second at full throttle. So we're just going to time advance up to our time, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. Go ahead and start thrusting up. We don't have to be super exact here. And done. Kill the node. Ascending and descending nodes are at 0 degrees. We are now ready. Now we have to decide where to begin our maneuver to get a moon intercept. And there's a couple of ways you could go about doing this. You could just place a node, add a bunch of prograde burn, and then fiddle around with where you start your burn. That works, and you can tune it up and get a pretty decent intercept. If we do this, we'll actually land directly at the moon, on it, which is pretty cool. You can actually eyeball it you'll notice that where your burn starts, if you adjust it, usually falls right about when the moon is coming over the horizon. So if you launch, say, and you won't want to deal with getting into a parking orbit, just wait until the moon is just coming over the horizon at the Space Center, launch, keep burning in your prograde. When your periapsis gets up to your orbit, just keep burning, come to the map view, wait till it burns out to the moon, and then make minor adjustments. Saves a lot of time if you're wanting to do a speed run. We don't want to go straight to the moon. We want to come in a little bit around 35 meters. If we come in this way, I believe we should be in a west to east orbit, which is fine. So this is a pretty good burn. 850 meters per second of burn. You can see we've got 900 meters a second of delta V left over. That gives us 50 meters per second of delta V extra. That's great. That gives us plenty of fuel for adjusting. Once we've burned, we will then wait until we get there and insert ourselves into lunar orbit using our final stage. So let's go ahead and do that. We will time accelerate. It's going to be an estimated burn of about 40 seconds. We're going to trust it for now. We might have to adjust, but really, you don't have to be super exact with these things. If you add in enough slack in your rocket design in regards to delta V, you should be able to get a very close approximation. You don't have to be perfect, and then make adjustments on your way to wherever you're going. That's the way NASA does it today. It's impossible to be perfect, basically, so don't worry about it. Our node's in 10 seconds, 10 minutes, so we'll accelerate until we get there. And we're going to start our burn at about T minus 20. 2 minutes, 1 minute, T minus 30. Five, and we will start our burn. Notice SAS is on, so we don't shift around, and we can see our apoapse is on its way out. What I generally like to do is, instead of relying directly on the maneuver nodes, I like to go off of what the actual orbital data shows in the map view. Just about there, and overshot just a little bit. That's not a problem. What we'll do is we will just swing our rocket around, which takes a little bit of time. Actually overshot by about 5 meters a second. Not a huge problem. We're going to swing around, face retrograde, and then we will just apply a tiny bit of thrust to correct our orbit and get ourselves where we want to be. So our retrograde marker, our green one right here. Turn on SAS to hold us steady. Wait a moment for it to settle. And then we will just very slowly apply thrust. You'll see our intercept is changing. And that puts our moon periapse at about 31 kilometers, which is pretty good. There was an extra 5 meters a second that we spent, which about matches what we went over, so no big deal. We are now on our way to the moon. We've got a nice intercept, and once we reach periapse at the moon, we will keep facing our retrograde, and we will burn hard to bring ourselves to a lunar orbit. And Jebediah seems excited. It's going to take us about 5 hours to reach our moon encounter, so I'm going to speed up time and get us there quicker. This is about the time you would normally be doing your ascending or descending node adjustments. I did it early just to make it easier to demonstrate, but in this case, no problem. If you were doing a interplanetary mission, you'd have to wait until you had left whatever body you were leaving before you did it. The SOI, the sphere of influence of whatever body you were leaving before you did it, so that you got the necessary information. It has to do with the way Kerbal presents some of the data. You can see here we hit our moon sphere of influence, and once we hit this point, our conics will shift and we will see where we are going right about now. Okay. So, pretty cool. There it is, on our way. We will set our maneuver node right at periaps, or as close as we can get it. Add a bunch of retrograde. And we don't have to be perfect at all here. We want to get it fairly circular because we do want to land on the daylight side. And the moon in Kerbal is like Earth's moon, tidally locked. So it's always facing the same way towards Kerbin, which means it's got a day that is very, very long and a night that is equally long. You don't want to be stuck on the night side and then run out of power. And we have a rescue situation. Make some small adjustments. Looks like we need about 250 delta V to make this change, which is going to be way more than what we have in this stage, which does mean that our insertion stage, our trans-Munar injection stage, is going to get sent off into probably, yes, we can see here, it will have a Kerbin escape and will be sent off much like some parts of the Apollo Saturn V rockets, and will journey off into space, eventually to re-encounter Kerbin sometime in the distant future. We've got our maneuver. Let's go ahead and get our ship pointed in the right direction. Now this is something we have to be very careful about. Even though our estimated burn says 9 seconds, we know that we've only got about 1 second left on this stage. And our lander stage has got a much smaller rocket that has much less thrust. So this estimated burn is a dirty lie. It only tells us for this, which we're going to be getting rid of. So we're going to need to add a little bit of extra time to account for this rocket. That is mostly just a guessing game. You could calculate it out if you really wanted to, but we don't care that much. And I'm going to give myself about 15 seconds on either side. Start the burn, stage, and there we go. Get ourselves roughly better lined up. Overestimated a little bit, but it's alright. And that's good. This one definitely doesn't have to be exact. We've now got about 1,960 meters per second of delta V left that we will use to land, take off, and return, which should be plenty. Now, we want to set up our descent. We do want to land on the day side, and we want to land on a fairly smooth section of the moon. There is a decent amount of science and art to picking your landing site and picking your approach. I'm just going to kind of guesstimate. I'm aiming for this little section right here, just northwest of this light side crater. Looks fairly smooth, and shouldn't be too inclined unless we land in a crater. That's going to be an extra 44 meters a second of burn to get ourselves on that vector. And that will be in 31, almost 32 minutes. So I will get lined up and time warp. Can't time warp more than 100x while below 50,000 meters. Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Now, since this stage is so small and so light, that tiny little engine, even though it doesn't have very much thrust, actually has, as you can see, a thrust-weight ratio of 7.05. So it will get up and move in a hurry. We don't have to be totally exact on this one because we're going to be adjusting on the go. Burn, cut thrust, adjust a little bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in fairly high and then kill my lateral velocity as we approach. That's how I do it. It's probably not the best way, but it works. So now that we are on our way down, I'm going to go ahead and extend our landing struts. I'm going to get us facing in our retrograde vector so that we are going bottom down, and go ahead and time warp. There's the one large crater. You can see here that the altitude that our instrumentation is telling us, roughly 21 kilometers, but our true altitude, 18.2, 18.3. Again, like I said in previous video, you don't want to be relying on this blindly and end up crashing into the side of a crater or a mountain. Some of the craters and mountains on Moon can get pretty hairy. There's some other bodies in the Kerbin system that will jump up at you. Okay, coming down, landing pretty much on the lip of that crater. You can just see it there. Looks like we're aiming right there. We've got a surface velocity of 541 meters a second. That's how much we're going to have to burn. I could pull up more data in MechJeb to give us surface lateral velocity and get more data there, but I don't really need it. Okay, let's go ahead and start our burn. Hopefully I did not overestimate this. Coming down pretty fast. This is nice and flat, so good location. I'm going to try to keep my ship facing my retrograde vector so that I come down as straight as possible. And we are burning a lot of fuel very quickly, so we're going to slow down a bit. I'm going to face horizontal and try to kill more of the horizontal velocity, which is good. Now we're on our way down. We want to land at about 6 meters a second, not too much more than that. Otherwise we might be crashing. You could do the math to figure out exactly how fast that is. It's pretty quick in terms of car speed. You would not want yourself to hit something at 6 meters a second. That's what our struts are for. Here, now we're just balancing fuel. We are not doing a suicide burn, which is where you wait until the last moment and then just do hard burn and somehow end up landing at exactly 0 meters a second. It's scary, it's dangerous. there's no need for us to do that. We're going to come down nice and careful. Looks like we're on a bit of an incline, but shouldn't be a problem. Well, just don't want to come down too fast. This is where we're going to burn a lot of fuel that we don't want to burn. Got a little bit of sideways movement. If you ever played the old lunar lander games, this is it. And we're down. Don't tip over, don't tip over. Don't tip over. Come on, use that, use that. Yes! Haha, use the reaction wheels in the pod to save us. And we are down. Thrust is killed. We are on moon. Look straight up. There's Kerbin. Excellent. Everything looks good. What do you see, Jebediah? What's it look like? A lot of nothing. Well, that's too bad. Let's get you out of there, huh? Right click. Extend ladder. And we are going EVA. Gosh, we are at quite an angle, aren't we? A little bit more of a hill than I expected. And let go. And we are on the moon. Good job, Jebediah. How do you feel? Pretty good. Plant that flag. Site name. I have never have fun times coming up with site names. We didn't tip over. Almost, but not quite. And there's our Glinda flag. Alright, well, we're here. We are not in career modes. We have no reason to pick up any science. I don't really feel like walking anywhere. It's a little bit too far to walk to get to the edge of that crater and look down, so we are just going to get back into our ship and head home. Get over there, Jeb. Alright, so, getting back to Kerbin. Self-oriented. So, to get from one body to another, in this case, if we're going from the moon back to Kerbin, we want to do much like if we wanted to lower our orbit, in which case we thrust retrograde. Since moon is moving in a counterclockwise direction, our retrograde is the moon retrograde. We want to be thrusting this way. We want to be thrusting clockwise. We could, if we wanted to, get ourselves into a lunar parking orbit and then wait and then thrust off. But I'm feeling a little gutsy, so I'm going to try a launch and burn straight this way and get us to Kerbin without using maneuver nodes, and then we'll correct on the fly. We've got 1,200 meters per second of delta V. The moon has no atmosphere. Launching is very similar to launching on Kerbin, but without atmosphere, we can start heading horizontally as soon as possible. We won't be following the horizon in this case, however, we will actually be launching straight this way, which is probably 90, well, I'm going to eyeball it. Quick saving, because I may have to repeat this. We are facing the wrong way, but that's okay. Let's bring the ladder back in. And let's get ourselves up and facing this way. Bring our struts back in. And you'll notice since we didn't land exactly on the plane with the planet, we're going to have to make some adjustments. But for now, I think our direction is pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and throttle up. We are now at 1 kilometer per second of delta V left and pushing out. I'm going to start moving back towards the horizon a little bit. We're at 700 meters a second. Getting close. A little away from the horizon. 500 meters per second. Oh. And there we go. We can see we've left the moon. We're now going to follow this orbit. We've got a Kerbin periapsis of 655,000 meters. We can get that closer. Slowly thrust. We're going to bring that down to about 2,000 or 20,000 meters. This is a deadly reentry thing. We're going to be coming in pretty fast, but should be safe. We've got about 300 meters a second delta V left over, so if we have to make any corrections, we should be fine. Speeding up, speeding up, speeding up. That puts us back in the atmosphere, 40, 30, just a little under 20,000 meters, and everything, we can leave it now and we will get back to Kerbin. If we do nothing, we will die on reentry. But this will get us there, that with 300 meters a second to spare. As you can see, even though we highly overspec'd the launch stage early on, we ended up with not a huge amount of leeway delta V. It takes a lot more to land on and get back from the moon than you'd expect. I admit my landing was not the most efficient. That could be done better. And we also spent a handful, little bits here and there doing other maneuvers, but this is pretty decent. If I were challenging myself, I would put us down directly on the Kerbal Space Center. I enjoy that challenge, but we're going for speed. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up. We don't want to go too fast, or we'll overshoot. The game will slow the time warp down as you get closer to a planet or any body, but if you're going too fast, it actually skips over those points and you can find yourself going straight through a planet out the other side before you realize what's happened. Whoa, our periapsis is way too low. That's not good. That is not good at all. We need to adjust that. Let me double check. Add a quick maneuver node. We want to push this out a little bit. Something we added extra. My fault for not checking beforehand. Alright, that's the direction we want to burn. I'm just using the node to get my vector. I'm not worrying about exactly how much I need to burn. I'll use the actual periapse data. Pushing our periapse up. This is not an efficient way of doing it. If we'd done this earlier, we could have saved a lot more fuel. Fortunately, we've got plenty and we're not too worried. So 20,000 meters. This is great. And we're actually coming in not too far away from KSC, which is right here. If we had timed this a little bit better, we would be okay. So now we're going to face retrograde. This will put the bottom part of our rocket into the atmosphere, which is the way we want to be facing. And we're going to time warp up until we get into the atmosphere. I'm going to fizz warp until we get into the lower atmosphere. You don't want to fizz warp too much, it can cause problems. 40,000. Now since I have deadly reentry, oh, there we go, I need to pop. You'll see the reentry effects. Actually, really, oh gosh. Oh gosh. There's that heat shield burning up. You're moving it. There's the there's our rocket exploding as it burns up. We're burning 2,600 meters a second. It's exciting. The heat shield is already cooling down, so we should be fine. And there we go. We're still 17 kilometers up, so I'm going to fizz warp, get us down a little bit further. You'll notice is that we actually slow down as we get deeper into the atmosphere due to terminal velocity. Once we get to about 2,000, I'm going to deploy the parachute. See, the heat shield gets ejected. And there we go. No problems. This takes forever. Get that last 500 meters so we speed up. 200 meters. 100 meters. And splash down. And there we have it. To the moon and back. Easy peasy. It's fun to do it without using the maneuver nodes and just kind of eyeballing it. Homework, set up a free return trajectory with a single burn from Kerbin to the moon and back with minor corrections, looping around the moon and getting back to Kerbin without having to do any large burns, just small correction. Very similar to how the Apollo missions work. I also like to set up larger missions with a command module and a lander module, again very Apollo style, and then do a docking after landing and just add a little bit of challenge. But I might cover something like that in a later video, maybe, maybe not, but that's that. So until next time.